So I've been asked this question a number of times, and that's how did Dean Owen get into insulation? I left school 2001 with very much average grades, not knowing what direction I wanted to go in. I took a job and learned to be a lifeguard and a swimming teacher, still not understanding the direction I want to go in. I worked on a factory floor full time while doing the lifeguarding separate, part time. I was making and fabricating products, wasn't quite sure what they were, what they did. I was then offered a job in the office, went up to the office, saw these brochures, these glossy brochures, and I actually was fascinated by the products I was manufacturing and where they went into new build construction. So back in those days, learning sales administration, customer service, business support, all the orders, etc., is all sent on fax. So it was quite a long time ago if I'm thinking about it. I was then offered a job in the technical department. Training for being in the technical department back then was building regulations, put straight on your desk, read those documents, understand them, understand what they mean when it comes to house building. From there, I learned SAT calculations, which is estimating the energy efficiency of new build properties for major house builders and regional house builders across the country. I started to learn new value calculations. RDSAT produced data SAT calculations as a domestic energy assessor. And that's kind of the beginning of my journey getting into insulation. I worked for that employer for around about 6 years, and I really wanted to get out the office, get out there in the field, go out and meet customers, be on the road. And it took a long time to get that opportunity, but eventually after interview, after struggling, after believing in myself, I was given an opportunity with Knauf Insulation. That role at Knauf Insulation was a regional technical manager, covering the East Midlands, the North West, the North East, and Yorkshire. And that was regarding cavity wall insulation, injection cavity wall insulation, retrofit into the UK housing stock. My role was to train individuals and manage their quality of work and carry out a number of inspections, which was a requirement as part of that BBA certification. As these schemes came to an end, and this scheme was called CERT, this is where the energy cum obligation was brewing in the background. This is where solid wall insulation had to be a focus. And I took a second role with Knauf Insulation to support the business development manager at that point in time to seed the market with internal wall. There was a big shift from the easy wins of cavity wall insulation. Now the focus was to look at those harder to treat properties, all those most expensive to treat properties. And that was around about 15 years ago. Taking IDBY as a system-led approach, as a concept, introducing that into a brand new market, into a brand new world. And in order to do that, it was back to reading the books again. It was back to reading the Energy Company Obligation, back to reading Green Deal, back to reading new legislation and new frameworks and new ways of working in the retrofit space. Not many people know this, but back in those days of Knauf Insulation, internal wall insulation, SWIP were actually involved at that point in time. SWIP played an integral role in managing the training centre, training IDBY installers, the carding process, the onboarding process in partnership with Knauf Insulation. What Knauf Insulation wasn't able to do as a large blue chip business is to be able to deliver project quantity amount, 50 metres squared here, 20 metres squared there, of a multitude of different components for a system. Knauf being a large blue chip company, very good at delivering articulated loads, full loads and full palletized volumes of loft insulation and insulation slab. But those project quantity amounts having to go into city centres, different project locations, it was actually SWIP operating in the background, delivering that service in partnership with Knauf. So the next part of the story with Knauf and SWIP is that those famous words our previous Prime Minister said, let's cut the green crap. That cut the eco obligation by 33%. Knauf made a commercial decision to back out the market at that point in time to focus their resource and time on general construction and new build. But that was SWIP's business, and the MD approached Knauf Insulation, and there was an agreement. The agreement would be had that SWIP would take on the IDBY system in their own right and continue with the work of retrofit internal wall insulation as their own business. So when Knauf backed out the IDBY insulation market, the only thing is I was heartbroken. I was in tears. IDBY that I'd been involved in, had so much vested in and enjoyed, had gone. That almost concluded my 10 years working for Knauf Insulation. I continued on for an extra year in a business development role before I went out to the industry as a key accounts manager working for new build regional builders, in terms of aircrete block specification before they're moving on to a facade specialist. And never would I have thought that after all those years, I'd end up being right back at SWIP, somebody I've been working with, somebody I had confidence with, and the excitement of being a part of growing this business is something very special to me.